This podcast is sponsored by The Generational Algorithm by Francisco Castillo. Discover how to rewrite the emotional code passed down through generations and transform your life. Get your copy today on Amazon at the link in the description.
How generational trauma shapes depression and mental health across families. Discover how family trauma and inherited trauma influence depression, and learn ways to heal through understanding multigenerational emotional patterns. How generational trauma influences depression, a conversation worth having. You ever notice how sometimes struggles with depression don't seem to be linked to what's going on right now? Like, a person might be doing everything right by typical standards, good job, steady friends, a supportive family, yet still feels weighed down by something heavy and invisible. What if I told you that some of these feelings might actually stem from trauma passed down through generations? Yeah, it sounds kind of wild, but there's something called intergenerational trauma, or sometimes transgenerational trauma, that helps explain this. Basically, it's the idea that traumatic experiences don't just affect the person who lived through them, but they can ripple through their family line, affecting kids, grandkids, and even beyond. Think about it. Families carry not just stories and memories, but also patterns of behavior, emotional responses, and even physical changes that come from how previous generations dealt with their pain. When trauma lingers like that, it's sometimes called ancestral trauma or inherited trauma. This kind of trauma can set the stage for mental health issues like depression in descendants who might never have faced the original event itself. Why trauma from the past still matters today. So how does this actually work? If your grandfather experienced something deeply traumatic, say war, persecution, or severe family trauma, that emotional pain can affect how he parented. Maybe he passed on an anxious or guarded way of relating to the world, or maybe his coping mechanisms created a family environment that was tense or unpredictable. This shapes how his children and grandchildren handle stress and process emotions. Over time, their brains adapt to this environment, sometimes making depression and anxiety more likely. This isn't just about tough love or bad parenting. It relates directly to the biology and emotional health passed on in families. There's even emerging science showing that trauma might influence gene expression itself, a process called epigenetics. That means these trauma responses can be written into your DNA, affecting how your brain responds to stress or regulates mood without you even realizing it. Breaking the cycle by understanding it. But here's the good news. Awareness is the first step in breaking free. When families acknowledge their multigenerational trauma and understand how it influences mental health, it opens the door to healing. If you want to get a better grasp on this concept, a really insightful resource is The Generational Algorithm. This book dives into how emotional patterns get passed down and offers practical steps to rewrite those painful legacies. It's not just theory. It's a guide for transforming family trauma into something manageable and hopeful. Embracing this perspective means seeing depression not just as an individual issue, but as part of a broader story. That makes it feel less isolating and more understandable. Plus, it pushes us toward compassionate approaches, for ourselves and for our families, instead of blame or shame. What you can do if this hits home. Start by learning about your family's history. What difficult events might have shaped your ancestors' lives? Talk openly with family members willing to share stories and feelings about the past. Sometimes simply naming the trauma reduces its power. Consider therapy approaches that acknowledge inherited trauma, like family therapy or trauma-informed counseling. Practice self-care and self-compassion. Healing inherited trauma isn't quick, but every step forward counts. Remember, depression linked to generational trauma isn't a sign of weakness or personal failure. It's a signal that pain has traveled through time, and the more knowledge you gain, the more you can take control of your healing process. If you want to explore these ideas further, definitely check out The Generational Algorithm. It's a thought-provoking read that's both informative and hopeful. Buy it now on Amazon and start your journey toward understanding and rewriting the emotional legacies that may be shaping your life. Hey, even just talking about this stuff out loud or with friends can be pretty powerful. Sometimes hearing another perspective can shed light on feelings you thought were hidden forever. Anyway, next time someone you know is struggling and the reasons aren't clear, maybe think about the generations that came before. Sometimes the past still feels present,